Hello YouTube, my name is Tony, and welcome to the Venture Crew channel. Today we got something real special for you. Today we're talking about one of the Gorosei. Now in the recent chapters, we have been shown their true monstrous forms, and one in particular just really caught my eye. It's a beast so menacing, so cold, so bloodthirsty. And that's Saint Shepherd Jupiter, the sandworm. Now, what do we know about this sandworm? Well, one thing in particular is that in a lot of translations, the worm is spelled W-Y-R-M. Now, that is Old English, and what it means is a serpent-like dragon. So it's not necessarily like an earthworm as we may think. However, it has been used to refer to earthworms. It's kind of vague on its exact meaning. It's really just more of like a fantasy way, like a cool way of saying like a dragon. You know, it definitely looks cool. Although I will say in the official Viz translation for English, it is spelled W-O-R-M, like regular worm. Just look at Jupiter. Is he really just a regular worm? He definitely has some characteristics, and some that I want to talk about that aren't even serpent, reptile, or worm related. You may have noticed the Dune books sitting right here next to me. Yes, I love Dune. Now, in terms of the sandworm, I doubt Oda really just did it because Dune is getting a resurgence in popularity due to the new recent adaptation from 2021 Dune, and then part 2 coming out just about a month ago. I would personally find it really cool if, since One Piece takes inspiration from a lot of different media, I think it'd be really cool to have a scene of Luffy riding Jupiter like Paul rides the sandworms, or like the Fremen ride the sandworms. I think that'd be a really funny scene and just a cool little reference. Now, what is it that we have seen Jupiter do so far? Well, we know that, one, he's just a giant worm. That's pretty cool. But we know that he can burrow underground, move around really quickly, and then pop up and swallow whatever is directly above him. Now, he tries to do this to Luffy, and of course, Dory and Broggy show up, they save the day, and they cut him into, I think, about 2 pieces, which is interesting, because one thing about even just regular worms is that when cut in half, they are able to grow back and basically create, or not even basically, just create 2 separate worms. When Jupiter regenerates, like all the Gorosei do, we see the head part that got cut off start to fog up a bit, and then you see it regenerate. I wonder if potentially there are other worms, and we're going to see them pop up. It could even be a scene of Luffy getting ready to take down Jupiter again, because Luffy's really kind of focusing on the sandworm, which I love how one of the more goofy forms of the Gorosei, as people are saying, is kind of the main highlight. I mean, other than, of course, Nosturo, which is getting a lot of spotlight, and then Mars at the recent chapter. So yeah, we could see multiple worms coming around. Luffy's getting ready to fight Jupiter, and then 2 other ones pop up behind him. Would it be clones of him then? Like if he untransformed back into his human form, would they still be there, or they kind of just fizzle out and become part of him again? I think that's more likely if we end up seeing multiple worms, but it could go either way. Another ability we've seen is the Suck. So he is fighting, Luffy, Dory, and Broggy, and then he unleashes this suction ability, and it starts pulling him in. Even Dory and Broggy say that we got to get out of here because it is a very strong suction that's pulling them in. And then Luffy, of course, just tosses a building at him, because that works in Gear 5. Yeah, that's a valid option to do, and it stops them for a bit, so they get away, and then they go deal with Warcury. But so let's talk about powers in general. So we know that he can burrow, he can pop up, he can use a suck, and he can maybe regenerate into multiple worms. That is just one thing that I've noticed. I don't think I've seen anyone say, other than like, oh, he could get cut in half, it could be 2, maybe. But I think there is genuine reason to believe that he would, with that little panel of him regenerating from just the head up, and we don't really see the other part. We actually do see part of his body in the ground. You can see it like in the foreground of one of the panels. but it's kind of just overlooked, and then you don't really think about it after that point. But that's like a little middle section of his body, I'm pretty sure. You know, you'll see the panel here. I'm going to edit it in here, but it's like a section of his body where it's just laying there. It hasn't started like fizzing away or going away. It's just laying there. So that could be a setup for another worm to just come out, and maybe that's just what makes Jupiter so intimidating, so menacing, so powerful, is that he could become multiple worms no matter how time you cut him down. So not only can he regenerate and heal, but he can just make more of himself. That's pretty freaking scary. I think so. Now, how can we connect this to real life? Because sandworms are more of a fantasy kind of thing. We do have real life sandworms. You know, you have the bobbit worm, which is a sea creature, and what's cool about that one is one of its main forms of attacking its prey is to pop up out of the ground with its little pincers and snap them in half. That's pretty dope. And it would be cool to see something like that happen with Jupiter. Hey, he could foderize a character. Just show him bite someone in half. Little dark for One Piece, maybe. But he could do it. I mean, we've seen Saturn, I think, blow up a guy's head. So it's not out of the question if someone got bit in half. And then one thing in particular that I've seen. Now, this isn't a worm. I said this at the beginning of the video. There's one that's not related to a worm or a serpent-like dragon. The Sicilian. Now, the Sicilian is a type of amphibian, so it's related to frogs. It's not related to snakes, not related to worms. But its appearance does resemble, or I should say, Jupiter's appearance resembles the Sicilian worm with like the little seemingly black scaling, and it kind of got the ridges. And it's just a worm, doesn't have eyes. It's a worm-like amphibian, and it's just got like some teeth. I just think it's a valid thing to bring up. Maybe we could see some stuff like that. Maybe he's not even a worm, he's just a Sicilian, but he's called the sandworm because that's just the monster name. Because, you know, the thing is about worms is it's really up to the discretion of the author or whoever's telling the story to define what it means. Because, again, with worm being used in fantasy, you know, take Elden Ring. You've probably seen dragons that, you know, are a little serpent-like, that you fought, and they're called, example, like what, like magma worm, and it's spelled with a Y. They're kind of used interchangeably. I think I've read somewhere where Lord of the Rings, I think what it is that Tolkien interchangeably uses worm, dragon, and drake. That those are used interchangeably. I think when I was researching stuff for this, those were the words that Tolkien would use when referring to like a dragon. How does Jupiter work as a worm? How is he moving around so quickly? And how he's probably doing it is via scale vibrations, you know, shaking the ground around him, and then just oscillating while he's moving, and that's helping him move really quickly around. Boom, snap up, try and eat Luffy. Just listen, I'll say that, you know, I know the Gorosei are all about business, but Jupiter went straight for the kill, man. He went straight for Luffy. When Nostro was like, oh, I'm gonna go for the pacifista, no, Jupiter said, I'm going right in, and he tried to go bite Luffy and eat him. He was like, I'm gonna wrap this up. So I love the sandworm. I love that Oda chose that as one of the Gorosei, because it just goes to show that you can have all these menacing beasts. Yuki, or the Ushioni, right? The Itsumare, the Fangji, the Bakotsu, and then the sandworm. Like, that's just, I love it. And I love that he has a pretty goofy design, because he's still menacing, right? It's just a giant worm with teeth. I think it's pretty sick. So all right, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is our first little just kind of talking to the camera type of video. We've got some things in the works, so do stay tuned for that. We've got a pretty cool Pirate Warriors video. Ooh, Pirate Warriors video coming out pretty soon. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.